Jameis had a guilty secret. Not a shameful secret, like McCall and Shane cheating on assignments, yet passing tests fairly. Not a painful secret, like how Thomas was often late to class because he had to drive his sister to her doctor appointments. And not a dirty secret, like the female appreciation photos Andrew had stupidly saved on his phone. Jameis was a hacker. Not like Trenton in middle school, who hacked the school Wi-Fi to play cool math. Jameis preferred to hack his classmates' Google Drives. Yes, he was aware it was creepy. That's why it's a guilty secret. He had some rules to make sure nobody got hurt, least of all him. There were certain docs you don't open. Anything with just a couple words or gibberish titles for starters. There were certain docs you closed quickly and tried to forget, such as lists that started getting too personal or reader insert fanfics. And of course, you don't copy a past assignment for a class you're taking now, you cheater. The whole operation, if you want to call it that, was a matter of, look, don't touch. Eventually, Jameis finished school and got a part-time security job at a museum. None of this plays any further role in our story, except to say that he could now finance his hobby. Naturally, being out of school and having no classmates to hack, he turned to others. First, there were his co-workers, most of whom hadn't used a Google account since finishing school themselves. Then, there were the other tenants in his apartment building. And, eventually, the patrons of the coffee shop next door to the museum. It was at the coffee shop, one day, he discovered Madam Whitney. Whether Whitney was in fact a madam, he did not know, just that her writing was something else. She came to the coffee shop regularly, seemingly just to write for an hour or two. Presumably, she ordered something, considering she hadn't been kicked out yet for loitering. But Jameis figured reading over her digital shoulder was creepy enough, without knowing her coffee order too. She was writing a book, and Jameis had never read anything like it. Now, to be fair to Jameis, he didn't read much that wasn't on hacked Google Drives. To be fair to Madam Whitney, her novel was superb. She did write other things. Jameis once found one of her short stories published in a local magazine. But the book was her incomplete masterpiece, slowly finishing before his eyes, until the day it stopped. The precise day was hard to spot. A week passed, then two, and Jameis gradually realized it had been unusually long. Regulars had come and gone before, and Jameis was prepared to let Whitney move on. However, there wouldn't be much reason to tell this story if he had. Since finishing the school, Jameis had added other rules, like not looking for real names and forgetting faces. As time passed and the book kept coming back to mind every time another writer came to the coffee shop, Jameis was regretting these rules. After a month of telling himself she might just be on vacation, and hoping there hadn't been an accident that would prevent the book from ever reaching its completion, he finally broke. It started small. While watching a Rainbolt video, the content creator mentioned a site for looking up books by just a line or two. Jameis tried any lines he remembered, and nothing worked. Whether he remembered the lines wrong, or whether the book hadn't been finished, he knew it was a long shot. For the next month, he kept trying. However, he was slowly forgetting, the real lines getting muddled in his head. So Jameis started looking for Madam Whitney in earnest. Elise was not a woman of secrets. Joy was a gift to be shared in her mind, and burdens were lighter when borne together. However, due to her open policy, she often forgot whether she had told you something or not. This is how 6 months passed before Elise realized none of her friends knew about her halfway finished book. Immediately, she sought to rectify this oversight. She emailed her mother and her sister. She brought it up with her co-workers. She chatted about it over coffee. At every opportunity, over and over, Elise laid out the intricacies of the plot to anyone who would listen. And then, Elise Whitney lost her motivation to write. Sure, she kept writing for the publications and such, but the book sat on her hard drive, like that cough drop at the back of the glove box. Honestly, it was only to be expected. Scientists say when you share your plans and ideas, you get the same dopamine release you would for completing your plan. Scientists are often wrong, but in any case, Elise was stuck. Sometimes she would stop and look through the window of the cafe where she did her best thinking, only to turn away, saying, "Not today." 1 month passed, then 2. Elise made herself busy with life. In the mornings, she would write magazine stories or an occasional commission piece. In the evenings, she might call a friend or meet up at a restaurant to hang out. She gradually stopped pausing by the coffee shop in the afternoons. Another month passed. She was doing some last-minute touch-ups on a submission for the Georgia Review when an email arrived from Google. It said, "You have made the following comments on why is it so hard to name a story?" That was her book. Why was Google saying she had made comments on her book? Elise opened the document and scrolled to the bottom. Sure enough, there was a comment under her name that she for sure hadn't written. It read, "Please, I know I'm trespassing, but please, I need to know how it ends." Like any courteous, open, level-headed woman, Elise Whitney responded the way you would if a stranger walked into your bedroom. "Who the hell are you? Get the... out of here!" Jameis was an idiot. Even looking for Madam Whitney was a bad idea. His whole plan was doomed from the start. Hastily, he did his best to apologize. I'm sorry, I'll go." And he signed off, again promising himself he would leave Madam Whitney alone. Elise fumed. She glared accusingly at her violated privacy. As it happened, though, her eyes caught on the last sentence of her unfinished draft. Actually, what if... Oh, but it could... Elise Whitney started typing. The last leaves of autumn surrendered to the coming winter. Snowbanks gradually grew deeper outside the coffee shop. Madam Whitney found another place to write, and Jameis found another hobby. It happened by accident. The next time he started hacking the coffee shop, he remembered Madam Whitney and found his fingers instead moving to look up book recommendations. Reading didn't really capture him, not at first, but every time he made a movement to run the programs, he just couldn't. It was audiobooks that finally won him over. One day, though, he had the day off and was looking for a read instead of a listen. While searching newly published books, he found something that seemed right up his alley and opened the sample. The Dread Kiss. To my audience of one, you know who you are. On the one hand, if it weren't for you, this might still be an untitled Google Doc. On the other hand, go to hell. He blinked and flipped back to find the author. But you already know who she was. Jameis bought the book. End of story.